bet you could. What are we gonna do when you leave? Okay, I think that's
It'll be different.
Probably get a lot more work done.
When I go down to see the attorney,
Oh, I will miss you, because you know. Well, I fight, but.
I never, really. So the guy just said to that? He must be a
Ready, Chairman?
Good morning, everybody. June 13. So it is Tuesday, 10 o'clock. Welcome to the staff meeting. We have a few in the audience. So, Tom, take it away.
Good morning, Chairman, Commission. This morning for staff discussion, we have one topic. When we went through the budget hearings in April and May, there was a CIP project presented, a juvenile residential complex line item that we've discussed publicly, and the commission had some questions and wanted some options brought back on other alternatives, so that we're going to use this opportunity today to do that. It's a tag team thing. Andrew will talk about the facility side of it, but Mr. Stonehouse and Mario are here to kind of carry the water on operationally what this would look like. So we'll start with Andrew and go from there.
Morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Andrew Diltz, Director of Facilities, and as the manager said, Steve Stonehouse, Director of Corrections, will come up here in a minute. Okay, a little bit of the history here. On May 22nd, DOC presented at the BOCC staff meeting the inefficiencies of having the juvenile residential facility and juvenile field services programs miles apart. In addition, each program has concerns with their location. Currently, the JRF facility is not large enough and does not allow for easy expansion. Being constructed with a gable roof, the major additions being considered are very difficult to design and keep cohesive with the existing structure. Maintenance on this facility is not easy, with HVAC units jammed into the attic and many components have reached end of life. Remodeling the facility will require us to update areas to current building code standards. When designing, we battle the functional organization of practicality while working with the existing structure. For example, the placement of an existing structural wall may create a less than ideal layout when remodeling. On the JFS lease, the landlord has another tenant he is moving into the building and will not renew our lease, which expires at the end of 2024. Excuse me. Based on the decisions made today and the direction provided by the BOCC, Tanya has a long-standing relationship with the owner, and she will ask that he allow us to remain a bit longer at the end of 24 if needed. Due to the facility concerns and the efficiencies gained by DOC and the children they serve, the Juvenile Services Community-Based Building came to fruition. This would unite both programs under one roof and on one juvenile complex with other juvenile services. However, the last time we met on this matter, it was requested that facilities provide alternatives to the $20 million Juvenile Services Community-Based Building. To make use of the existing structure, Facilities and Corrections worked with our on-call architect to remodel the facility and construct additions for the required space increase. If pursued, we still need to find a space for JFS. We looked into 3 options for JFS. That was building a new facility, buying an existing, and remodeling or continuing to lease space at another location, which is subject to market rates and can be volatile at times. Our existing square feet for the juvenile programs, the JDF and JIAC program share the same building. They're just shy of 99,000 square feet. The JRF facility consists of almost 25,000 square feet, and the JFS lease consists of 16,180 square feet. Our proposed solutions: the Juvenile Services Community-Based Building, which would unite JRF and JFS under one roof, would be 49,000 square feet. And if we were to do the remodel and the expansion of JRF, that total would be 32,688 square feet. And we'd still continue to lease space or find a location for JFS at 16,180 square feet. So that footprint would stay the same for JFS. Our project estimates, the juvenile community services base building is $20,680,847. If we were to do a remodel for a juvenile residential facility, instead of doing the community services base building, if we were to do the remodel for juvenile residential, that remodel would cost just shy of just over $7.4 million. We still need to figure out what we're going to do with JFS. Those are the options 1, 2, and 3. Option 1 would be if we were to build a new building, buy land and build a new building on it, it would be around $8.6 million in addition to the remodel for juvenile residential for a total of just over $16 million. Option 2 would be to purchase an existing building and remodel. That would be just over $6.3 million for a total of $13,803,744. And then option 3 was if we were to do a lease for JFS, the cost for a 10-year lease with tenant improvements or remodel costs at the beginning would be just over $6 million for a total of $13,439,774. At this point, I'll hand it over to Steve, and he can discuss some of the efficiencies he will gain.
Good morning, Commissioners and Manager. I'm Steve Stonehouse with the Department of Corrections. So when we are looking at what to do with our juvenile programs, I just wanted to let you know that I've included the history of juvenile corrections so you can see the different iterations that our service locations have taken over the years, going all the way back to the Boys Ranch from the 50s and 60s out at Lake Afton. The current campus at Lincoln and Hydraulic has been in effect since the 70s when the juvenile court was moved out of the regular courthouse and moved to that location, and then the juvenile detention facility was built in 1977. So the idea was to have a location for juvenile services at that time away from the downtown area where adult criminals were held, and so it moved the juvenile offenders out of the county jail, built a new building, and put them in a space with programming and education, social workers, places for visits, something more conducive to the needs of adolescents. Over time, the department and the county outgrew that facility, and a new courthouse was planned and built and moved into the current juvenile detention facility in 2006. The juvenile residential facility was built as a way to try to address overcrowding at the detention facility. You may recall that the old juvenile detention facility had 33 beds, and we were routinely housing 75 kids. The county got in trouble with state regulatory boards, and we were under a consent decree. So then we started to move kids to Topeka to hold them in housing at a cost of a couple $1 million a year. So the new building was eventually approved, and 108 beds were built. The juvenile residential facility was part of the efforts to divert kids from secure detention, and that was built in 1994 with 24 beds. So the kids that are at the juvenile residential facility are the exact same kids who would be in detention, but for an order by the court to have an opportunity to be at the juvenile residential facility. So that program is ingrained in juvenile services, and you know the problems we've had in staffing that program, and now the problems that we're having with the physical space. So 3 or 4 years ago, we started talking about a remodel to that building, and showed you what that looks like. It basically addresses the concerns that we have with that building and allows an option to remain for kids who don't have to be in detention. the juvenile residential facility is helpful for the community and for the clients because it's community-based. The kids attend their own school if they're able to. If not, we have school on grounds where they can work on that. It's an unlocked building. Parents and family members can participate with their kids' programming, can take youth to appointments if need be. It's just more conducive to a return to home once court happens. So when we think about the efficiencies, if we would have all services on one campus, I really put them into 3 areas. One is system alignment, safety and security, and then the benefit to parents and families. One thing I heard attending the task force addressing Sedgwick Lofton's situation was the community task force really wanted us to work on community-based programming and providing options that were not secure detention for kids in the community. So having a centralized location for all juvenile services would make that much easier to come to fruition because all of our staff members and administrators would be on one location. We would have access to our mental health staff. We have access to a single maintenance unit. We would consolidate our support staff, things like storage. Our kitchen all serves out of the juvenile detention facility. So having one area makes the efficiencies highly desirable. I'm fully aware that it comes with a price tag, so that's where the decisions come in. The new building also offers a bit of expansion. The system, as I've showed you in here, the system has changed since the 70s, and it's changed in my 28 years since I've been in this. I never thought that we wouldn't have out-of-home placements, but that's where we are. So we are also at a point where we can't grow. We can't do very much different than we're already doing. The new building offers a little bit of options to help integrate new services should that become necessary. We think that we could easily eliminate between 3 and 6 positions with a new building because of efficiencies. We've already not hired an administrator or a program manager after a retirement, just trying to streamline our operations and help people with like roles supervise those programs. That will only be easier if we're on the same campus. All the business of juvenile field services happens at the juvenile court complex. Obviously, they go to court. That's where the district attorney is located. That's where many of the clients in JDF and JRF are located. So it feels like a good fit to have the ISOs at the same location where their kids are living. This also offers shared resources in the way of programming, mental health treatment, anger management, parenting classes, things like that are offered at JFS that would move that to the court complex and offer access to a wider variety of clients. So that's where I see as system alignments. When we've visited juvenile justice centers around the state and around the country, this is really where the newest buildings and newest plans are going, is to a campus complex. Mario was in Wyandotte County on Friday, and they have a new building that includes their juvenile detention facility in the basement, intake and assessment, community corrections, court, clerk's office, and court services all in one 3-story building. We don't necessarily need that since we already have a campus with most of that, but this would just be closer to that same type of concept. Wyandotte County does not have a residential shelter. I know it was in the plans, but it didn't come to fruition for whatever reason. Safety and security, if you look at the current building, there are the safety and security concerns with the layout of the building that have been long-standing, and most of that has to do with when you remodel and add on, things get a little bit wonky. That's a technical word. So the classroom where school is quite a ways away. We still have the gym and the classroom are still located in the same spot. So it's still separated from where the staff members are. So the remodel does not address some of the safety concerns that we've identified. But what it does do is build out all of these yellow areas to increase space, increase usability, increase areas for kids and families to visit. And then it does attempt to give us more access to these further away areas, but it's just not built the way, if you were building it from scratch, it's just not as convenient as it possibly could be. And of course, this is the rebuild of what that would look like. It's 2 stories with juvenile field services on the top, JRF, home-based services, and the evening reporting center located on the first floor. We think that this option would be a vast improvement for the children and families that we serve, coming to one area to do all of their business with the juvenile court and the juvenile services. It would all be in the same area. So somebody would go from court to be put on some sort of probation. It's all done in the same space. It's no moving to another area. So those are the 3 major areas where I see us being able to get efficiencies if we were to go to a single building. The space at the Harry Street Mall where juvenile services, field services was originally, the space was fantastic. But when we lost our lease, then have those programs split into 2 different programs. You'll notice on here that juvenile field services has been moved 3 or 4 times because of space issues, because of lease issues, and getting us into a permanent solution would stop that, would stop us moving. Because if you consider $10,000 or $20,000 every time we have to move, it's just not a whole lot of stability for that in the long run. So that's the efficiencies when we talk about what a new building would look like. If there are any questions or if I forgot anything, or if we need clarification, I'm
We
happy
probably
to
have some
understand.
questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Andrew, Steve, I think you did a good job explaining the efficiencies and what this is. I have 2 questions. The first is, and there's a lot of balls we're juggling right now with buildings. We have juvenile complex, we have the admin building, emergency management complex. Can you just clarify, what is the plan to pay for each? What does this look like?
So that's a great question. An admin building solution, the commission has authorized us to look at 4 options, right? And so depending on which option we go with, a different funding source could be in place. For 3 of them, the Murfin building, construction at 3rd and Main, construction at Garvey Center, all would be bond funded. The long-term lease here would not be eligible for bond funding, so that would be cash on a recurring basis for however long that lease term is. For this project, also the proposal is bond funding. So if I can refresh commissioners, we have a whole lot of bond funding falling off in the next few years. And that's always a concern because when we do want to do bond funding then down the road, that will necessitate either a cut in operating expenses to keep a flat mill levy rate, or it will cause an increase in the mill levy rate in order to pay for those debt service payments on an annual basis. So there is some benefit to doing that. We are down to 9.5% of our state limit on how much debt we can actually issue. So we are far below, I would say, 95% of governments, large governments, in terms of our capacity. The PPE warehouse / EOC, we know that we're pursuing a grant. Unfortunately, we got some news yesterday. We may not be prepared to actually we may not be in the best position to win that grant. We still intend to bring that to you for application approval next Wednesday, but that would be the hope, is eventually to get that grant. However, that also has a 30% match, and we would plan for that with cash. There are a number of other projects that are still sitting out there, Community Crisis Center that we don't have a resolution on. We know the project was approved at about $15.5 million when we originally brought that CIP. That was well before inflation caused dramatic increases, so I don't think that's probably a realistic number anymore. And so that'll be bond funding that we'll have to talk about too. The bond funding for that at the $15.5 million amount is in your forecast, but anything over that will have an impact. Overall, I think we're well situated to take on additional debt as long as we're strategic about when we do it. And so the CIP that you all will look at already there's already an amendment for an admin building. We just need a choice on the dollars, right? And which option we're going to go down. And the sooner the better on that. If we're not going to stay in a lease, then we definitely want to figure out a solution sooner rather than later, because otherwise we're going to be in a position to pay general fund cash toward that lease in 2025. So is that more than you ever wanted to know?
It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. It's helpful. Thank you.
Trustee has comments.
Would the remodel be cash
What remodel?
if we did remodel and lease as opposed to?
Oh, this, based on those price tags, the 13 million and north of that, we would bond fund those.
The remodel as well.
Yes, generally we'll look at anything around 3 million or more as bond funding as an option, especially as we plan to use up fund balance on other projects, or if we're going to draw down fund balance for strategic reasons. One of the things we haven't talked about yet is revenue replacement in the general fund in 2024. That could also be used to offset some of this debt. But we just have to wait and see what happens with the CIP projects we already propose, I think, before the commission has a really good idea of how much is available for that to help with these bond costs.
Thank you,
And
Lindsay.
election office was bond too, correct? Not cash?
So right now, the election office is budgeted at 3 million, and that is cash funded. Anything over and above that, we'll have to look at a different plan for funding, and it will depend on the cost.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you. The second question was there any consideration or is there any capacity to take JRF, its services, its model? Is there any room at JDF to incorporate that over?
There's a ton of room in JDF, and we have looked at that, and we were not able to get it by DCF with the licensing regulations for the building. Mr. Salinas worked on that, because actually, quite frankly, KDOC is paying for centers to take secure beds offline and make them into residential centers. But things like windows, and we just don't have that in the detention center. And then we'd be breaking into walls, and it would just be it got very cost prohibitive.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Steve.
Yep.
There's Steve on this diagram here, just to make sure. So the second floor
Yes.
will just be. Will that all be new construction on top of that footprint there in the middle?
No, this is all new construction.
Oh, okay.
This is all new. This one's all new construction, and I don't know if I can go back. Yes, and this is the remodel that does not include the second floor, because as I understand it from Andrew and from the architect, this building won't support a second floor. So this would be done to address a lot of our concerns, and then JFS would be wherever they find the JFS.
Okay. What other questions we have? Jim, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Just first of all, I'd like to get a copy of Andrew Dilson notes that you read, because that was a lot of information. I took good notes, but I can't keep up with you. So might I have a copy of that, please? Not right this second, but after the meeting. So just want to clarify. So this plan does not change JDF or JIAC at all, correct?
Correct.
And all the juvenile court system, all that is unchanged as well. The only thing we're talking about changing right now is JRF and JFS.
Yes.
Okay.
And maybe possibly the administration of JIAC would be moved to somebody who is administrating that building.
If it's nearby.
Yes.
And right now, the nearby is not, that's TBD. We don't know where it's going to be.
Right.
It could be there, it could be someplace else.
Right.
This JRF remodel, what you showed us earlier, or is this
No, this is the remodel.
the remodel? What exactly are we doing here?
The blue is existing, And the yellow is new build to address the waiting room area, address office space, and to work on areas near the classroom to expand for groups and meetings.
So how much square footage are we adding here?
Slide 3.
Am I going the wrong way?
Going from 24,924 to 32,688. That's the difference. So if I do the difference there. So we're remodeling the existing building and adding.
Basically 7,764 square feet is the addition.
Okay. And again with that, I think it might be nice to. I know we were under a lease under the 3803 East Harry, but it might be nice to see what was our expenditures there. We've been over there quite a while. Let's say from 09 to 23. That's a fairly long time. Do we have actuals we could look at and see what did that cost us for a comparison?
About 150,000 a year.
Right, but this estimate includes a JFS 10-year lease at $6 million. So that seems a little higher than what you said.
So instead of going off of what Max has given us at the current lease, because Max has given us, he's treated us pretty well over the years. What we did is we reached out to one of our on-call real estate agents, and he provided us a lease rate, and he gave us a range. We basically went in the middle of that range, and that's at $16 a square foot. And then we had an architect provide us with remodel costs per square foot. And we ran both of those numbers times the 16,180 square feet lease to provide that budget. And we went 10 years out on the lease. And chances are we would be there longer than 10 years, but I don't think we'd enter a lease for less than 10 years.
Okay. All right. I don't think I have any other questions right now. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Dennis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. I guess question for Lindsay. Are we looking at putting this in immediately in the CIP if we go with this building at $20.8 million?
So what we have in the current CIP that was presented and what we would plan to recommend is, yes, design cost in 2024 and construction in 2025. So there would still need to be a process by which the commission approve construction contracts and all of those things. So this isn't the only bite at the apple that the commission will have, but this would authorize our folks toward moving in this direction as opposed to any of the other alternatives that you saw. And there is some time pressure to figure out which option we're going with because of the expiration of that lease.
And that lease runs out at the end of 2025?
2024.
24. But you're talking construction in 2025, so what do we do in the interim?
Steve, do you want to speak to that?
That's our challenge. I know Tanya would be working with the landlord to see what extensions could be made. And other than that, we would look at any open building to patch our way through.
So our next step is CIP. When would you bring that to us?
We would plan to present that to you as a part of your recommended budget on July 11th.
Okay. So then once we get it into CIP, then you can go design construction in 2025, and by 2026, so you'd have a facility. That's the plan?
Yes, and we would bond fund toward the end of the construction process to reimburse ourselves for the costs.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay. Any other questions, sir? Good? Okay. I think we're great information. Thanks for the update. This is helpful.
Thank you.
Okay. What else? Okay. The electeds, Kelly, you all right? Okay. Any of the commissioners have anything for Kelly? Okay. All right. Sheena, you want to report how happy the HR department is with their new building, their new office?
We are officially moved into the first floor, so we welcome you to come down and visit us and check out the space. Everyone's very excited, so thank you.
Living in boxes.
Getting out of boxes today. Very nice, thank you.
Okay, and thank you, Rusty, for providing me the information about recent data on 911, call volume, compensation. It was a very good summary email. If it would please, I think the other commissioners would like to know that information. So.
The information I sent you was from January. Lori and Lee updated that late yesterday after when I sent to you. And I just sent that out to all of you, or I'm getting ready to send it out to all of you.
Okay.
I can't remember if I hit send or not before I walked down here, so.
Okay.
But I will get that out to everybody.
And I ran into Sheriff Easter yesterday, and the meeting for the 911 Advisory Committee is later today, maybe?
He's setting that up, and then we will, at some point this week, we'll do a press event where we can talk about CAD and operations.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, the numbers were great in terms of the number of calls and all that, the number of staff and the salary. That was excellent. One of the things that happened last week, I guess I'd like to know a little bit about, I guess we've been using the WSU backup site as a remodel what's happening over here on North Main. I don't know to what extent North Main has been utilized at all, but that's part I don't really understand exactly how we're operating right now. But then I guess at WSU, another event that happened, our service line was severed somehow. Something happened, and so they had to go into kind of a backup mode. So we were in a backup location, and then we have another situation happen behind that. So it might be nice to
Back up to the backup.
back up to the backup. So it might be nice to be able to speak to that as well, because again, I think that the narrative out there captured one call or whatever happened during that moment, and they're making that sound like their narrative is that's normal. I don't think that's fair. So I need to understand exactly what happened there.
Okay. So, 714 North Main, aside from us having server equipment in that facility, is not being used for 911 dispatching or call taking because it's demolished. And actually, they started putting the flooring back in yesterday. They've rewired the whole thing. They're starting to lay the floor back down. And right now, I think toward the end of July, it will be, I don't know the correct terminology, mostly done, but move-in is in early August is what it's slated for. As far as WSU, they did have an incident this week where they had a failure with fiber, the fiber optics line, which does not belong to the county. They had additional trouble. I talked to Laura this morning. They had some additional problems with that fiber line yesterday. They believe that it's fixed now, and she's following up with both the University IT and keeping Mr. Elpers in the loop because this is state WSU fiber. They're the ones who provide fiber to that building. We do have a backup. If that site completely failed, we do have a backup available that they could move into and utilize, and that is the Munger building, computer lab. That would be a last resort, but it is an option if we had to between now and August if something significant happened. But I think we fixed the fiber problem. Again, it wasn't a county issue and it wasn't a CAD issue. It was a fiber optics issue coming into our facility that doesn't belong to us and doesn't belong to 911.
And the other question I had was, it sounds like their existing staff had to go through CAD training because of the CAD being new. I don't know, I guess that slowed down some of our recruitment training and new people. That slowed down a little bit because we had other training we had to deal with. Might be good to have a refresher on, what is CAD? When do we pay for it? How much did it cost? What was the implementation date? Some details around CAD, because again, I think that the reality is any new software we're going to find out with Odyssey here shortly, but any new software is going to have glitches, and everybody, I think, understands that. But it might be nice to be able to speak to that as well, because I think this was a very intentional, huge investment in a much better, robust system. But getting that thing online and getting everybody up to speed is a little bit difficult. So I think it'd be good to have some details on that as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
Laura can do that. And when you're serving a county this size and 18 municipalities, and actually, to some level, we're serving Mulvane, even though it's in mostly in Sumner County. Whenever you're serving that many people and their departments, fire, police, and then REMS, it's a lot of moving parts, and so I think we're doing well. There's always room to improve and get better as we go, but we'll give you an update on that. Probably coming out of this meeting that the sheriff is putting together.
Sure. Okay. Very good. Anything else?
Rusty, where are we at now since we didn't get the land? Where are we at on the grant for the emergency management?
So Tanya can speak to this if she wants. She's gotten some other land options. Adrian and Julie have both evaluated those and sent some information back to Tanya on those. So we're actively working on land acquisition still yet. And Julie is actively working with our grant folks on the narrative and the letter, so it will be done this week, so you can get it out to McConnell ahead of next week's presentation to you next Wednesday. So we're still moving on it, and we still hope to do well with the grant application process and with finding a piece of land that will be suitable.
When am I going to see the letter?
I told Julie we wanted it to you this week before end of the week so that we can get it out to McConnell.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks a lot. Based on time, it allowed us, I think, to ask some of these other items. So, okay. Anything else, Commissioners? Okay. Tom, anything else?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Have a great day. See everybody tomorrow.